This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the town of North Haven.
Good evening, all. I'd like to convene the Board of Fire Commission meeting, special meeting, Tuesday, September 17, 2024. I'd like everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So it looks like our first agenda item is the swearing-in ceremony for Shamir Moore, Company 4. Chief, comments?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Chairman. So we're thankful that Shamar Moore decided to join the North Haven Fire Department. I can remember not that long ago when he interviewed, and he had a giant beard. And we were a little worried that he was not going to be able to cut that off and make that commitment. But he's done so just fine. He excelled through Firefighter 1. He's been a member of Company 4 Northeast now for some time. And it is with great excitement that I recommend him to the board to be sworn in this evening as a firefighter.
Perfect. Volunteers are far and few in between today, and we certainly appreciate you and all of the volunteers that have volunteered throughout the years. There's a tremendous legacy here of volunteers that have donated their time and their talents and their energy for the best interest of the residents in the town of North Haven. This commission and previous commissioners certainly have appreciated them, and we appreciate you. So please join me up here for the swearing-in ceremony. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that you will support the Constitution of the United States and the state of Connecticut and the rules and regulations of the North Haven Fire Department as written and amended by the Board of Fire Commissioners, and that you will faithfully and impartially discharge the duties of volunteer firefighter of the North Haven Fire Department to the best of your ability, so help you God? I do. Welcome aboard. Thank you. Congratulations very much.
Good job. Sure, we'll do a quick recess for
Absolutely.
some pictures and give Mary Jane some time to get
Absolutely. So we're just going to have a quick recess for a couple of photos. So we're going to reconvene the North Haven Fire Commission meeting back to order. We'll ask for the approval of the minutes of the Board of Fire Commission meeting, the regular meeting in August 2024.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. The Chief's report.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing that quick recess. It's important to get some pictures in with a new volunteer such as that. We're going to go through alarms first. We'll start with year-to-date. Year-to-date, looks like this time last year was 3415. Year-to-date at this point is 3390, so we're basically where we were last year. Our last commission meeting occurred on August 20th, so the next set of numbers I'm going to give you are going to cover from August 20th until yesterday, September 16th. So in that period of time, the fire department provided ALS assist in 16 different occurrences. We had 11 incidents in which we responded to the highway, 103 incidents in which just an ambulance responded and there was no reason to respond with any kind of fire assets. There were 70 occurrences, there are 70 different times in which there were overlapping incidents. So I know this gets confusing the way I say it sometimes. So in total, 70 occurrences, which accounted for 170 incidents in total, out of the 353 responded to last month. So it's a 48% overlap, which is consistent with what we see. We're normally in the 40s.
So wait, do that one more time for me.
Essentially, the 170 incidents.
So there were 70 times where there were overlapping calls, but it included 170
Correct.
incidents. Okay.
Right. Yep. So it shows that there were certainly times that there were 3 and 4 incidents
Right,
occurring at the
more
same
than one.
time is
Yeah,
what it
okay.
is. Right.
And that represents 48%
Yeah.
overlap.
So that's where we're at for incidents. Our year-to-date budget, we're at 20.4% at the close of period 2. It should have been the close of August. Our fire fees, as of the close of period 2, is just under $61,000. Our ALS billing at the close of period 2 was just under $7,000. Further regarding the budget and some staffing shortages that I anticipate impacting our budget are a couple of things. One is we continue to have a member out on leave since July 25th. I don't expect that member to be back for at least another month. That is a long-term sickness that is occurring there. If you recall, we just added the second shift with 11 firefighters in May, so we don't have a lot of time in which we can forecast any kind of savings there. And then the only thing I wanted to bring to the commissioner's attention we are potentially looking at a couple of retirements in the early months of 2025, and I would expect that to have an impact on the budget as well. Even if I were to be notified of retirements, the schedule of employment does not allow me to do anything with anticipation of retirements or hiring in advance of until the employee's separate employment. So unfortunately, if we're not notified until early 2025 that there are any number of retirements occurring, it'll be too late for the January recruit class, which means I will not be able to put any firefighters in class until September, which means essentially the entire calendar year with overtime for as many retirements as may occur.
So the firefighter classes in January, September,
That's it.
and that's it.
So it's
So-
just something to be aware of.
So if someone in January tells you that they're gonna retire, do they continue on with, do they take their vacation time and all of that at that point?
It depends which way they do it, but either way, there's an expense incurred for covering the shifts, whether they're taking vacation time or they're still, they just decide to separate employment altogether. It's just an example of how the table of employment really impacts our ability to do anything in terms of long-term budget forecasting
Yeah.
or anything.
Table of employment, do we know, is that something that's in the charter, or is that just a practice that the town does?
My understanding is it's a practice. It's looked at as it's part of what's voted on, so it's not something that can be amended.
Yeah, that's my understanding as well. I mean, we've been tested on that a number of times. And the fact that the employment number is X, and if anyone tried to increase it to Y, there was all kinds of concern as to whether or not we have the legal right to do so.
Right, I'm just questioning whether that's just like where, because, I've heard some arguments that with the attorney saying that as long as the budget stays within what it should be, it's not necessarily the number of employees, and I'm just curious as to where this sort of table of employment being like the word, where that comes from. And so, but if you guys don't know, that's fine, I just was
I
wondering.
don't know, I would imagine the town attorney would need to make a determination as to whether or not it's something that is part of the Board of Finance that determines what the proposed budget is going to be, including the number of employees and the dollar value. But what you're saying is if the dollar value remains the same,
Well, that's what I've heard, that discussion has happened at Board of Finance meetings that I've been at. And, there's, from what I remember, it's often around, okay, they're voting on the budget, not necessarily the table of employment, but I was just curious on
Yeah.
where that came from. Okay.
not sure.
So that's where I'm at in terms of budget. If you look at the packet that was sent out to you in advance of the meeting, Not a lot that should jump out at you there. 65 different inspections occurred in the month of August, 5 plan reviews, 54 permits, a number of public records inquiries, 2 incidents in which we called out investigators to the scene. There were 15 different fires which required a cause and origin report in the month of August, whether it was autos, house, whatever it was, and the budget report is attached there for you. Other than that, I have nothing further for the chief's report.
Any questions, additional questions for the chief regarding his report? Hearing none, we'll move on to correspondence. Chief, have you received any?
I have not received any correspondence other than the normal day-to-day mailings.
I did read on Facebook a correspondence that was received. There was a person that had collapsed on Broadway, their state, and sent a letter thanking our paramedics for saving their life. And we certainly commend those paramedic firefighters for doing so. Any other commissioners receive any correspondence?
I did receive some questions. That was a follow-up, I guess somebody, for this resident who watched the last fire commission meeting, and much of it are a list of questions. So I'm just gonna kind of read through them, and I'm not sure that we're gonna have the answers tonight, but if we don't, if we could, and he was looking for the breakdown of responses received from the volunteer firefighters needed fire, and whether the homeowners, were they from homeowners or solely motor vehicle tax, and I think I had asked that question basically last meeting, whether we knew the responses that we got for the volunteers from the tax bills, if we knew which ones.
So the question is regarding the tax abatements?
The flyers that went out into the bills.
I believe there were 10 inquiries.
There were 10 inquiries, and do we know, can we find out, how many, have we gotten volunteers from those 10 inquiries?
2.
So 2. So it resulted in 2. Okay. And do we have any clue, can we find out from them whether they got their notice in which bill they got it in? Because it went to both.
It only went in one bill at this point.
It only went in the homeowner's tax? It didn't go to the motor vehicle
I'm sorry,
tax?
it only went in the motor vehicle tax, not in the homeowner's tax.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so that answers quite a few of these.
There was a lot of people who called to express an interest. Some of them we were able, and that's when I say I'm saying representative of the department. So for all of those inquiries, we put them in touch with a volunteer firefighter who's great in terms of answering questions and has been around for a long time. Really not much he's going to be asked that he's not going to be prepared for it. So he's able to filter all of those inquiries. The same thing when we get website inquiries, telephone inquiries, whatever it might be. And he keeps a running list, and he did the same thing with this. And he was able to kind of track who they were, how old they were, because that typically comes up because we want to make sure that we're guiding them into the right direction. In some of these cases, we are able to guide them more towards a CERT team because when they found out the physical nature of the job, or they found out the fact that you had to pass a pretty rigorous physical, they elected to go to CERT. And so that's why, in total, it looks like 2 of them are going to have moved forward with any kind of interest.
Okay. And he did ask about, do we know how much the cost of the flyers going in?
I believe it was somewhere around $3,400.
No. That's expensive. All right, and then there was one other question not related to that, and it was around artificial intelligence being used in the fire department and whether we're using any at this point.
Not the fire department exclusively, no. There is some AI being used by the hospital to look at some of our reports. That's not something that the fire department is using.
Okay. All right.
So I have a question. At $3,400, was there a given number printed, but maybe not all were sent out?
It was It was a bill that was provided to me by the town's clerk's office on the vendor that they use for everything else. I didn't have a whole lot to do with it.
So they probably did the flyer, printed the flyers to match the number that was sent out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, hopefully.
Any other correspondence?
No.
Hearing none, we'll move on to the old business of the fire department.
Old business, the only thing I want to bring the commission up to speed on is the two engines that we've been talking about for several years now have finally arrived. One of which is out here in the apparatus space. It's being placed into service this week. The other is due to arrive. It's here. It's still at our vendor right now, getting a few final touches done to it, mounting equipment and so forth that we already have. Remember that when we buy this apparatus, we don't necessarily buy all new equipment with it. So we have to retrofit compartments and brackets and so forth to our existing equipment. Well, we can't send our existing equipment to Ohio, right? So it needs to come here first, go to the shop, the vendor's shop, and then we send our equipment there, transport it there, and it gets outfitted. So that's the reason why when I say it's here, it's not physically in the station. It's being retrofitted now, and you're welcome to go out after our meeting and have a look at one of our two newest engines. And that's all I have for old business.
Can I, two questions on the engines. So the one you said is not in service yet. When does that happen and what's sort of like the process?
The process is mounting all that equipment that we have to get put on there for brackets, and then just getting it in.
Okay.
This new engine that's in the bay now is in service?
It can be, yeah.
It can be.
Okay. And the one that's in the vendor, do we know?
I don't have an idea. It's going to be a week or two.
Okay.
I don't know. But I'm fearful to say that because then if a week or two comes and it's not here,
Well,
all this is
I'm
moving
never going to
targets.
blame you for giving us an
Sure.
estimate. But
Sure.
then
Sure.
the other question is, where will that go?
It's going to go to Northeast, and then the engines are going to be rebalanced and reshifted.
Okay. And is anything getting retired based on
At
these
this
two
point, I
coming
don't
in?
believe so, no.
No. Okay.
Because we had to return the leased engine, right? And then we're going to try to take another engine and put it to the training ground so that we're not taking in-service apparatus and use it as training. So at this point, it doesn't look like that. No?
Okay. Oh, one other old business. This is very old business,
Mhm.
and this is kind of to bring up. We talked about the rules and regulations, and we were going to update them. I'm wondering whether we can have like a small committee look at the documents. And I mean, there are some things that are obvious that need to be updated in terms of language, and that aren't necessarily about process kinds of things. So maybe if we can kind of get a jump on, like, having a Word document and making some suggestions, and then that way we can sort of get the ball rolling on getting those updated.
It's probably something we can talk about. I think it's something that has to get talked about in executive session because it is referenced in the CBA, so there could be an impact bargaining to it. So it's probably worth having that.
We'll talk about that in executive session, but I agree with you. I think there's some verbiage in there that is pretty simple to fix, but if it has an impact on contract,
Good.
Let's talk about it in executive session.
Okay, we have to, just to be clear on that with executive session, we just have to make sure that we're only discussing what needs to be in there, because any contract that's closed, we don't necessarily, we don't even need to get into the specifics about what we're thinking needs to be updated, but we just need to know that we need to get that process going.
Okay.
Okay?
Anything else?
Oh wait, I lied. One more thing.
Go ahead.
Quinnipiac and the updating of Northeast, is anything going on with that yet, or?
So we're securing quotes, and I'm working with the finance director in the first selectman's office.
Okay. And do we have any estimates on when they might actually be able to get going on that, or is that?
So I'd expect some work to start soon, but I'm not, because you have to get quotes from different contractors, and it kind of has to be done in a particular order. I'm not going to have a dollar number for several months.
I just meant like when they'll actually be able to.
I
start
believe
getting
work's
going.
going to be starting in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
And we certainly thank Quinnipiac University for that $300,000, and for Mike Frieda working collaboratively with the president of Quinnipiac and designating those monies to the fire department.
Yeah.
It's certainly something that we've needed. It's 12 years since we've renovated the firehouse there, and it was well over time for us to get that second floor done. So I'm excited to hear that they're going to begin the process in the next few weeks. That's great. Anything else on the old business? Hear none. New business of the department, Chief.
I don't have any new business for the commission.
I have a question about grants.
Mhm.
Since I've been on the commission, I've heard about 3 grants that have been submitted. The SAFER grant, the radio system updates that we learned about last week.
Yep.
And then I saw P&Z, where you were talking about the garage. Is that an old grant, the funding, did it come in already?
That's a grant that Lynn Sadowski administers and oversees, and that's a steep grant that we are eligible for. Yes.
So are there any other grants that have been submitted that are under review and we're waiting for a response?
For the fire department, no.
How often is there a request for a proposal for the SAFER grant?
It opens up once a year.
Once a year? Is that something you're thinking about
Nope.
applying for?
No.
That's it.
One other quick question. So I'm on the Commission on Aging, and I just came from there, and the I guess it's like the South Central Commission on Aging was at the meeting, and they had mentioned that they help people. They worked with you to help people to register for that Connect system. So I just was wondering about, I know we have the website just to let residents know that if they need help, being able to, get the information into the Connect system, that agency is willing to help people with that.
That was part of the flyer that went out that we paid for that we just talked about. That was the backside of the flyer rather. I'm sure the library has some assistance that they provide seniors and so forth, but there's not much more that we can do. We purchased the system, we provided the means to be able to do it, but
I was just thinking if we can just put a note, like if you need help with this on the website, this is where you can go, because that's one of their, they have a bunch of different volunteers.
Sure.
And that's one of the things they were trying to focus on was getting people.
So put me in touch with somebody if you
Okay.
can. I don't want to blast on our website if they
Okay.
can call another agency and then
Yep.
without having
I
some
think you know
conversation
the
first.
person who came today, but I'll let you,
Okay.
I'll give you.
Sure.
And Chief, I know there was a motion that was suggested. Do you want to present it now?
We can probably do that coming out of executive session, I would think.
Okay. Okay. So we're at the good of the fire department.
I have nothing for the department.
Okay. Public comments. I see we have a couple of firefighters here. Any
I would
comments?
ask that the commission invite them into executive session, please.
I'll entertain a motion to move into executive session.
So moved.
All right, second. So moved.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, Chief. I didn't hear that you asked. I invite them in. Yes.
Yeah.
So let's. Are we off?
Well, we have to clear all this, right?
Yeah.
Well, no, we gotta make a motion.
Yeah,
in
we have to
public
make a motion.
invite
Right,
them
so
in.
I'm gonna get that.
Yes, please
Yeah.
put it back on, please.
No, I never went off, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about
And we're
that.
still on.
Yeah. So we'll make this motion and we could indicate when we get back on that the motion was made.
I think we're on right now.
We're still on.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said we were off.
No.
No.
Perfect.
Carry on.
All right. So we'll entertain a motion to include the 2 firefighters, captains that are in the audience in our executive session.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Thank you. I'd like to reconvene the Tuesday, September 17, 2024 North Haven Fire Commission meeting to order. Jen has a motion.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to accept Cole Januszewski as probationary member of Northeast Company 4 effective immediately.
Do I hear a second to the motion?
Second.
Is there any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Any further business coming before this commission? Hearing none, I'd like to make an announcement that the next regularly scheduled Fire Commission meeting will be scheduled for Tuesday, October 15th at 6 p.m. at Mount Louise Company 2, Quinnipiac Avenue, North Haven. And please, if anyone's interested in participating as a volunteer firefighter, contact the North Haven Fire Department. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Do you need a motion to adjourn?
We do.
I'll
I'll accept the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
This meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much.
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.